Hello and welcome to the GCSE Physics tutorial for topic P6 waves. This tutorial will cover part 1, properties of waves. First of all, you need to know that all waves transfer energy. On a typical wave diagram as shown, the height of the wave from the middle point, from rest, is called the amplitude of the wave. The wavelength is the distance between two consecutive waves from the same point, for example from peak to peak or from trough to trough. The frequency is the number of waves per second, and that's measured in hertz. The calculation that connects wave speed, frequency and wavelength is shown here. You also need to know how to rearrange this equation. So example, in the question you need to find out the frequency of a wave that has a speed of 2 meters per second and a wavelength of 3 meters. To find the frequency, you would do the speed divided by the wavelength. So that would be 2 divided by 3, which makes 0.67 hertz as the frequency. There's two practicals that you need to know in terms of investigating waves. The first is using a ripple tank. Now, ripple tanks have water set in a well and a power supply with a generator attached. And when it's turned on, they create a motion in the water that makes ripples. And those ripples have a set distance between them. If underneath the ripple tank you have a white piece of card, you can cast the shadow of the ripples onto the floor, and then you can measure the wavelength of the waves produced. Now, it's probably easier to measure the wavelength for 10 waves and then divide it by 10 to get the wavelength of 1. Now, doing this, you can find the speed of the wave using the calculation frequency, which you would get from the signal generator, times by the wavelength, which you would measure on the card. Another way to calculate wave speed would be the wave on a string. So you set the equipment as shown here, and you turn on the power supply and the string will start to vibrate. And then you can measure the wavelength of the waves produced. Now again, it might be easier to, rather than measure one, measure more and then divide it by how many the waves there are to get an average. The frequency is what you have set on the signal generator, and the wavelength will be the distance from one wave to the other, and using those you can find the wave speed. In summary, we've looked at the properties of waves and two practicals investigating waves.